Oh, for a muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention. A kingdom for a stage, princes to act, monarchs to behold the swelling scene. Then should the warlike Harry, like himself, assume the port of Mars, and at his heels, leashed in like hounds, should famine, sword, and fire crouch for employment. But pardon, gentles all, the flat, unrazed spirits that hath dared on this unworthy scaffold bring forth so great an object. Can this cockpit hold the vasty fields of France? Or may we cram within this wooden O the very casks that did fight the air at Agincourt? Oh, pardon, since a crooked figure may attest in little place 1,000,000. And let us, ciphers to this great account, on your imaginary forces work. Suppose, within the girdle of these walls, are now confined 2 mighty monarchies, whose high uprearing and abutted fronts the perilous narrow ocean parts asunder. Piece out our imperfections with your thoughts. Into 1,000 parts divide one man, and make imaginary puissance. Think, when we talk of horses, that you see them, printing their proud hooves in the receiving earth. For 'tis your thoughts that now must deck our kings, carry them here and there, jumping our times, turning the accomplishment of many years into an hourglass. For the which supply, admit me, chorus to this history, who, prologue-like, your humble patience pray, gently to hear, kindly to judge, our play.
C'est nice, hein?
Mais là je filme, t'es sûr, ou je me fatigue pas pour rien?
Yeah. Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by this son of York. All the clouds that loud upon our house in the deep bosom of the ocean buried. Now our brows bound with victorious wreaths, our bruised arms hung up for ornaments, the stern alarums turned to merry meetings, dreadful marches to delightful measures. Grim-visaged war had smoothed his wrinkled front, and now, instead of mounting barbed steeds to frighten the souls of fearful adversaries, he capers nimbly in a lady's chamber with the lascivious pleasings of a lute. But I that am not shaped for sportive tricks, nor made to court an amorous looking glass, I that am rudely scamped, and want love's majesty to strut before a wanton ambling nymph, I that am curtailed of this fair proportion, cheated of feature by dissembling nature, and that so rudely that dogs bark at me as I halt by them. I, in this weak piping time of peace, have no delight to pass away the time, as to span my shadow in the sun and descant on mine own deformity. And therefore, since I cannot prove a lover to entertain these fair well-spoken dames, I am determined to prove a villain, and hate the idle pleasures of these days. Plots have I laid, by drunken prophecies, libels, dreams, to set my brother Clarence and the King in deadly hate the one against the other. And if King Edward be as true and just, and as I am subtle, false, and treacherous, this day should Clarence closely be mewed up about a prophecy which says that G, of Edward's heirs, the murderer shall be. to be or not to be? That's the question. Whether it's nobler, in the mind, to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing, end them. To die, to sleep. No more. And by asleep to say we end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. To die, to sleep perchance, to dream. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. There's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the proud man's contumely, the oppressor's wrong, the pangs of disprized love, the law's delay, the insolence of office, and all the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes, when he himself his own quietest might make with a bare bodkin? Who would fardels bear, to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveller returns, puzzles the will, and makes us rather bear those ills we have, than fly to others we know not of. Thus conscience does make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with a pale cast of thought, and enterprises of great pith and moment, in this regard, their currents turn awry and lose the name of action. How is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by this sun of York, and all the clouds that lowered upon our house in the deep bosom of the ocean buried? Now our brows bound with victorious wreaths, our bruised arms hung up for monuments, our stern alarums turned to merry meetings, our dreadful marches to delightful measures. Grim-visaged war hath smoothed his wrinkled front, and now, instead of mounting barbed steeds to fright the souls of fearful adversaries, he capers nimbly in a lady's chamber, to the lascivious pleasings of a lute. But I, that am not shaped for sportive tricks, nor made to court an amorous looking-glass, I that am rudely snapped, and want love's majesty to strut before a wanton ambling nymph, I that am curtailed of fair proportion, cheated of feature by dissembling nature, and that so lamely and unfashionable that dogs bark at me as I hold by them, why I in this weak piping time of peace have no delight to pass away the time, unless to spy my shadow in the sun, and descant on mine own deformity. And therefore, since I cannot prove a lover to entertain these fair well-spoken days, I am determined to prove a villain, to hate the idle pleasures of these days. Plots have I laid, plots, by inductions dangerous, drunken prophecies, libels, and dreams, to set my brother Clarence and the king in deadly hate, the one against the other. And if King Edward be as true and as just as I am subtle, false, and treacherous, this day should Clarence closely be viewed up about a prophecy which says that G of Edward's heirs the murderer shall be. Dum 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 dum. The dive thoughts down to my soul. Here Clarence comes.